It's not uncommon that we're meeting with people digitally every single day, whether it's a new business relationship or visiting with a family or friend. It's not uncommon for us to share a screen versus face-to-face conversation. My guest today, René Rodriguez, is an expert in how we break down that barrier between that screen to connect with each other better. He's an expert in consulting CEOs. He's a keynote speaker, author, as well as has his own podcast. So let's head over and meet with René and his wife, Maddy, so that he can show us his home, his studio, and do a transformation on me. Let's go.
Welcome, how are you?
Hi.
Thanks for coming. Good to see you.
Yeah.
This is Maddy.
Hi, Maddy.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me into your home. I know that you are very busy. You've wrote a book recently. Tell us what's going on in your life, René.
Oh, this is crazy. I mean, this nonstop travel right now. We do as many keynotes as we can, a lot of workshops, given that we have 6 kids. So it's been quite the balancing act, yeah.
A lot of husband and wives are working together, and so tell us how you guys do it, how you support each other.
It's simple. I do what I do, and she runs the business.
But that's the best part of the house that we live in now. Both of our offices are here, so we have a studio upstairs that René can shoot all of his content in, and then my office is down here. So all of our staff meetings, he comes down to my office.
When we were looking at the house, when we walked up to the studio, we looked at each other, we're like, okay, this is the place. And so that was it. It was a very simple decision once we saw it.
Well, how about we check out your house and show me the studio?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Come on
Check it
this
out.
way.
So during the pandemic, obviously, you had to do a lot of your stuff virtually. So you set up the studio. What all happens in here?
Well, this is the 3rd rendition of the studio. This is our favorite by far because we've got 6 different cameras, 23 lights in here. So I can control this entire studio here, so there's no production crew needed. As cool as it is technologically, it actually is what makes it feasible. But all that required innovation. Everybody had to think differently. The videographers had to think differently. Tech people had to think differently, and I had to think differently. And so here we run webinars, I do all my Zoom calls, and I also work. And so this used to be an office, but now it's a set and a stage that happens to also be an office.
So I know that you do this on stage all over the world.
Yeah, well, I think that to get an idea of what amplify your influence means, we use an example of a very simple thing, this question of what do you do and what makes you unique? And so I'm gonna ask you that same question. So if I were to say, who are you, what do you do, and what makes you unique?
I'm Garofalo. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and I'm a mortgage loan officer. I'm unique because I am an expert and I have a high level of care for my clients and the industry.
Very cool. So now think about what happened. What happened was you fell into what we call the question trap, where you tend to answer questions exactly how they're asked. And so the second part is that we feel compelled to answer questions that are asked of us, even if they're not well thought out questions. And the last part, the person asking the question is typically leading the conversation. So when you put all 3 of those together, I feel compelled to let somebody lead me down a path that they didn't put much thought into. And so part of the first process is that we have to unlearn that and go a different approach. And so what makes you unique? And give me 2 to 3 words that make you unique. You said something about caring.
Yeah, caring. I would say I'm fun, adventurous, spontaneous.
Okay, and so which of those 3 speaks to your heart the most?
To my heart, probably the caring.
The caring part, okay. Typically we try to live out our values through our uniqueness, and the science says that values are typically formed between the ages of 9 and 13. What happened and who was around between the ages of 9 and 13 that drove that caring? It's either going to be one of 2 stories. Either what we call a lighthouse story, meaning somebody was the beacon of light of caring, or you had a foghorn story. And the foghorn story is the warning sign of what you didn't want to be.
So when I was 9 to 13, that range, I first had my stepdad come into my life, and he was super loving and
So he was a lighthouse.
Yeah, he was a lighthouse. Good dad to me.
So tell us one story about Steve being a lighthouse to you around the word caring.
I think he's just always there for me, and like there was this one time I drove through a Burger King drive-through and my car wouldn't like shift, and it was like a couple hours away from home, and just without question he just like got in the car and drove to me and came and like saved the day, and that was just how he always was.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So would you say that you also demonstrate this caring when it comes to working with your clients?
Absolutely, yeah.
So would you say that you also go out of your way to make sure that your clients know that they're valued. You go out of your way to make sure that you do things that maybe others won't do.
Yeah, I think when I don't make that difference in somebody's life, I feel like I failed.
You feel like you failed.
Yeah.
How does it feel to hear that story?
It feels impactful. It feels like you summarized who I am more so than what I said I did and who I was before.
There's hundreds of those types of stories that shape who we are. And when we learn to tell those in a business-friendly format, now we're actually connecting. We're not just looking for the lowest price. We want a connection that we can trust, but we even say that so often that I think we've lost sight of what that means. The relationship is, do I know who you are? That ounce of vulnerability, that story that's unique to them, we now can say, okay, when there's a gap in our relationship, I can draw from that story to fill the gap and go, oh, you know what, hold on a second, I know that Amber cares, I know so-and-so cares, let me call and make sure they're okay. Versus, well, I don't know why they didn't show up, they're probably too busy for us, right? Mm-hmm. The benefit of the doubt is what's earned when we share our stories.
Spending the afternoon with René and Maddy, I can see why he's considered to be the leading authority for leadership and influence. I'm Amber Garofalo. That's all we have time for on this episode of Financing the American Dream. Happy holidays to you and your family.